Well, this is my first attempt at a tutorial video. I've had several people ask me how it is that I set up my weaves, and I've posted one about packing the thread, but it wasn't a video, it was just a tutorial. Anyway, I'm going to give it a shot and see if I can help you out. I'm just getting set up here. We'll see how this goes. Okay, so step one is to create your left list and your layer list. I use Pick2Weave. On my website, I have a lot of available patterns, and you can download all the files. This is going to be a hunting, fishing, shooting type combo weave. It's a little icon that I'm doing on a rod I'm building for my dad for Christmas. And it's going to have some text on it, Fussell Family Tradition. So once you have all of your stuff you need for your left list and everything, I've got it all printed out there. Set that off to the side. I'm getting ready to set up my rod. I like to tape down. I do this all. I have pretty basic equipment, so I tape down my braces on both ends, and I put in a section of I put in the second part of the blank there, just so I'd have more space between to work with. And then the next thing I'm going to do is I've got this board here, which is just a piece of balsa wood. It's about 10 inches long. 8 inches to 10 inches is good. This is where I lay out all my thread. I'll be doing that in a little bit. Step one is to figure out how many threads you need. So for this particular weave, I need 112 threads, which means the middle of my design is going to be at thread 56. So I've already set up my Renzetti Wonder Weaver. What I do is you can loosen this nut here on the Renzetti Wonder Weaver, and then you can rotate the rubber and the number guide. So what I do is I pick a bolt, this bolt here, and I line it up on 56. So that bolt will be top dead center of my blank whenever I lay out my threads. You can see these black and blue marks I've put on the Wonder Weaver on the rubber part. That's to help me keep track of where the threads are. I've marked every fifth thread with a black mark and every even thread with a blue mark. The reason I do that is because it doesn't line up perfectly all the way around the rod, or all the way around the weaver. It looks pretty close right now, but you can see there, this is off slightly. And about a half a degree, or I guess it would be about a degree because it's marked every 4 degrees. That can be a problem whenever you're doing a complicated weave. So you want to make sure and mark the slots so that you always know what thread you're working with. And then you just use the number guide as a guide and not as an identifier. Okay, so I've put my Wonder Weaver on the blank. This is my foregrip here. This is the weave's going to be right in this area on the rod. The easiest way to find the center is this is a spinning rod, and so that's the groove that kind of marks the top of the rod. You can see I've got the groove here, and then on the opposite side there's where the reel seat. That's where the reel's going to seat in there. So that's 180 degrees is where that groove is. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to place my Wonder Weaver, if I can get the camera right here. The Wonder Weaver has the little white pegs at the bottom that are to protect the blank. So I'm going to mount it behind the foregrip, the left side guide. And I'm going to try to place that right in that groove. And that's thread 56, and so it's going to be top dead center, and so that's where my middle thread will go. I'm not going to be able to, I don't have the right equipment to videotape while I'm doing that, so that's the basic instruction of what I'm going to do, and I'll pick back up once I get the left side mounted. One thing to note is you can see, looking at this angle, it looks like my bolt's on 50. That's one of the reasons why I do these black marks here, because it's easy to get confused from your angle as to what thread you're working with. And as you can see, you move the camera around and that's actually lined up with 56. you can see how that perspective change causes a lot of identification problems. That's where these black and blue marks come in handy. I highly recommend putting some sort of marking on your rubber of your weaver so that you don't lose track of what thread you're on. I know that every black one is on every fifth one, so if I was going for thread 61, I can sit here and my thread will be laying in 61 there. So instead of having to look and say, oh, there's 61, or trying to identify it from this angle, I just go, there's my mark for 60. So the next thread in between the blue and the black is 61. That's why I did that. So the process for lining out your right side is a little bit different than lining out the left side, because you don't have an easy identifier for where the center of your rod is. So I've already taken my right side weaver and lined up my center bolt that's going to be on the top with thread 56. So that's done here. On the left side, I went ahead and this string that's tied down is going to be the length of my threads that I'm weaving with, of my cross threads. So I taped it down where I'm going to tape down all the threads and stretched it out. You want some overlap because you're going to want your threads to be able to hang through the weaver and not be too short, because that can cause it to pop out. So I put a piece of thread where I'm going to mount the right side weave guide. Okay, now this is not the center of the rod, but that is where the weaver is going to bolt down to. So what I need to know is, where is the center for my middle bolt on my weaver. So I want to know where thread 56 is going to lie on the rod. So I took another thread, and it's longer, and you can see I laid it in slot 56. Okay, and then I'm going to try to do this with the phone. It's going to be difficult because I don't have like any sort of mounting equipment. So I'll give you the general idea, and then I'll do it and then come back once it's complete. So, you know, here we are. We stretch it out. I turn it so that 56 is facing towards me so I can get a good straight look at the rod. And then I'll stretch this line out and place it in the center of the blank. Okay, and then I'll take my pencil while I'm holding the thread and I'll mark where that center line is. Like I said, I don't have enough hands to do it right now, so I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then I'll pick back up once I have the weaver ready to position and show you what that looks like. Okay, so I got my tape marked, and I put my top 56 thread screw right in the center, so that's top dead center of the rod. Now it can be off just a little bit, so the next thing you want to do after you do that is take your thread that you ran to find the center line and put it in slot 56. Okay, and then also put it in slot 56 on the left, and then turn the rod so that you can stand directly above it. And I'll try to get this directly above here. Let me adjust my lights. So get directly above your rod and make sure that it looks straight. You may have to adjust it just a little bit, but that'll all get you really close. Then you come to the end where you're going to tape down your threads, and you look straight down on the rod, and using your pencil you mark tape where you're going to tape down your threads, your cross threads. One thing to mention is these bolts don't have to be super tight. You got to be careful, because if you tighten them too much you can crack the blank. I use tape on this end to protect the blank, and it also allows the bolts to grip a little better so the weaver doesn't try to spin on you. Alright, next up I'm going to be laying out the threads.